Welcome back to Grief Inspired. My name is Catherine McNulty, and today I decided to come outside for a video. I guess the lighting's a little bit odd because of the sunshine, but the sunshine is just glorious today. The weather could not be more perfect. I came out here. These are some of my grapevines that in not too long will just be like dangling and covered with grapes, which is super cool. And I got a question about guilt. And this is a comment on one of my other guilt videos. And she asked, how do I deal with not wanting to forgive myself? So she's been watching my guilt videos, and I talk about forgiving yourself and the need to forgive yourself. And she says, I'm afraid to let go of the guilt and forgive because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. And so I came outside because I want to share a story with you, because I think we have to really understand guilt and how the guilt process works to answer this question a little bit more deeply, right? I keep trying to dig deeper into guilt, and I want to share with you something that happened with my 9-year-old. He is now 9, and I don't want him to hear, so he's inside. And I want to tell a story about him because I think it's a good story. I don't know that he would be very happy that I'm sharing it. So we're just going to do it on the down low. So we were at, well, what we would call Sunday school, right? Learning about the church. And I help out in the class. And we had an event a couple of weeks ago, and there was some leftover bags of chips, like small bags of chips, and some juice boxes and things. And I told my son that there were some of those and that I could get some of those before we left. So I said, come in the back room. Let's put the chips in your backpack, because he had a backpack with him, so that nobody else sees them. And then we'll just go and you can eat them after we leave. So this was a way to get him the chips, but not have everyone else in the class know that we were going off with them. And it was perfectly fine that we were taking them. So it's don't make it like a stealing thing. It's not like that. They knew we were taking them. But I didn't want the rest of the kids to know, because it wasn't my place to do that. So we've been struggling because he doesn't always listen, and he didn't put them in his backpack the way I told him to. So when he got out into the class, all the other kids saw that he was doing it. So I, of course, got a little upset because that was not what we had talked about. Okay, I got a lot upset, but we're not going to go there. This is about him, not me. So I pulled him out and we started talking about it. And I'm like, why would you do that? Like, I specifically told you not to do that. You know, he was showing all the other kids, like, look what I got. You know, I got chips and you kind of didn't. And he was just excited that he got them. And so I immediately said, you know, why would you do that? I don't understand. I told you. And he started feeling really guilty. And he started crying. And then he got angry. And he said, I'm so stupid. I just hate myself. And he's crying and he's angry. And he just started going into this rant. And he's like, I just need to beat myself up. And I'm just so bad. I'm just so dumb. And he was self-loathing. And like, he would at times like physically like hit himself. Like, and he just, there's so much emotion, so much guilt, so much, you know, because I said, you're going to get me in trouble. I'm going to get in trouble now for doing this. And so he felt really bad. And that was his reaction. And he's crying, and his reaction to the guilt, feeling guilty about what he did, about what he shared, caused him to look within and beat himself up, right? And that was his response. It was like this self-loathing response. And it's not because I've taught him that. I mean, I hope that, I mean, maybe I did make him feel guilty. Maybe that was a little bit on purpose, right? Because he really shouldn't have done what he did. But it was really upsetting how angry he got at himself. And we had a conversation once we both sort of got in the car and calmed down a little bit. And I was trying to get him to calm down, and I said, you know, here's the thing, like you being upset and being angry at yourself, that's not going to do anything. I said, you're not, that's not, there's no positive that's coming out of that. What could you, let's look at the situation. Let's walk through how the situation went, right? And say, well, what could you have done differently? And he's like, well, I should have listened to you. I should have put the chips in my backpack. I shouldn't have showed them to the kids. And I said, well, how did the kids feel, the other kids feel when they saw that you had chips and they didn't? He's like, well, they probably didn't feel so good. And I said, right. I said, you were thinking about you and you weren't thinking about the other kids. And I said, but beating yourself up now, what good is that going to do? I said, so what can you learn from this? You know, we reviewed what happened. What can you learn? And he's like, well, you know, I learned I should listen to you, and that I probably shouldn't have showed the kids, and I should have been happy to have what I had. And I said, yes. And I'm sharing this story because I think it's useful. I mean, we first, when we feel guilty, right? When I talk about guilt and why we feel guilty first because we want someone to blame for the situation that we're in. And when we can't blame doctors or the person that passed on or other people, sometimes it's easier, the best and easiest target to blame is ourselves. And so we blame ourselves and we beat ourselves up, and secretly we feel somehow a little bit better because we're suffering. We make ourselves suffer on purpose by continuing to blame ourselves, because we feel like we should feel bad. Just like my son felt bad with the chips and how he wanted to hang on and I was like, are you going to do this all night? Right? Are you going to ruin the night? Are we going to let this take over? Or can you make a different choice? Can you just learn from it and let the guilt go and say, okay, well, I'm just going to do better next time. I'm going to try to do better next time. And so when this woman says, you know, I'm afraid to let go of guilt and forgive myself because I'm afraid I'm going to forget. So sometimes our guilt makes us feel closer to the person that we're feeling guilty about, because we don't want to lose that connection. And so at least if you have the guilt and you have the pain of that guilt, it's somehow tying you more closely to the person that you lost. And we often wonder, I know I wondered with my infant, that I was worried that if I let go of all the pain that I had been feeling for the last 2 years, that if I really let some of that go, that I was letting go of him, that I would somehow forget him, that my relationship with him had become so much about the pain and the hurt and the suffering that I didn't know what my relationship was to him without that, because it became so comfortable. It became what I knew. And I think the same thing happens with our guilt. We can feel like guilt is what we know. We know how to feel guilty, and we know how to make ourselves feel bad. And if we let go of that, then maybe we have nothing. Maybe we will forget, right? That's the concern. But the reality is if you feel this strongly that you don't want to let go of the guilt, that you're worried that you're going to forget them, right? Just the fact that you're worried that you're going to forget them tells me that you're never going to forget them. You won't forget. And if you're worried about forgetting, then my question for you would be, well, what can you do to make sure that you don't forget, right? So I don't know the story behind this question, so I've asked for more information so that I can follow up with this person and understand more fully. But the question is, what can you do to not forget? Can you spend time writing down the stories that you do remember, the little antidotes, the things that you like, the things that make you most happy about the relationship? Can you document the things that happened in the last days? Do you have emails you can go back through? Do you have photos that you could put on your wall, that you could surround yourself with? If you're really worried about forgetting, well, then take time and say, well, what could I do to not forget? Instead of spending the time beating yourself up, how can you spend the time finding ways to make sure that you don't forget? And I know that you're not going to forget. You never will. If it's somebody that you've lost and it's so important to you that you're here watching these videos, you're not going to forget. It's just not going to happen. So what I can tell you is that it's okay to let the guilt go. And my advice is to replace it with something else. Replace it with the memories. Replace it with the love that you have in your heart. Replace it with things that you can do in honor of that person. I like trying to promote things of service. Do one thing every day for someone else. And say to yourself, I'm doing this nice thing to honor this person, to help me not forget. I'm going to volunteer once a week here. And I do that, and I make it a part of my schedule every week, every month, however often you can do it. And I do this to make sure that I'm honoring that person and I'm not forgetting. Could you spend time every day journaling, writing your gratitude in the journal that I have that's linked below? If you haven't seen it, please go get it. It's super, super helpful. And lots of people are really getting a lot of benefit out of it. If your guilt is overwhelming, then I want to encourage you to reach out to me, because it's a big component of what we talk about in our grief course. Next grief course is coming up June 18th. So you can jump into that course and we can just work it out. Because that's what we do in the course. We work it out. We talk about guilt. We talk about why it's there. We talk about our own guilt, and then we work it out. So I want to leave you with this message and say, I understand being afraid that you're going to forget. I understand being afraid to let go. Change can be scary. But what you have to remember is when you let go of something, you make room for something new to come in. And so if you let go of the pain, then more love can come in. If you let go of the guilt, then something else can come in. Maybe it's service. Maybe it's journaling. Maybe it's any activity that you do for them. Maybe it's getting yourself healthier so that you're living your life more fully in honor of them. There's lots of things that you can do there. But when you let go of one thing, there's place for something new to come in. So why not allow the good things to come in, the things that we want, the happy memories, the things that remind us of them, the things that we want to say they made our lives different and they enriched our lives and made us better because of these things. Guilt doesn't serve anybody. Beating yourself up only hurts yourself. It doesn't do anything for the rest of the world. If people see you beating yourself up, it's just really uncomfortable for them. So you're not really doing a service to anybody who's left around you. So don't be afraid to let the guilt go. Or let it go for a day. So I'm going to just let the guilt go for a day. I'm going to try that out and see how that goes. If you don't like it, go back to feeling guilty the next day. Just give it a try and see how it works out, and let me know what you find. Bye for now.